Hello and welcome to Vibrant Living Diaries, the podcast where we unlock the secrets of how you can renew your inner vitality and relearn what it means to live a life with energy and purpose. I'm your host, Danielle Grobman, and I'm proudly collaborating with the International Wellness Alliance. This alliance is home to experts across the world whose specialties allow us to cover the entire spectrum of health and wellness. Just as a disclaimer, the stances our guests take on this podcast and the topics we cover are not representative of our individual perspectives. We are here to gain a holistic understanding of all points of view. All information and advice we give here are purely for entertainment purposes. If you're planning on making any lifestyle and/or health changes based on what we cover here, please consult with your main medical wellness practitioner to find the best next steps for you to take on your wellness journey. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Dr. David Medansky, an extraordinary guest who's changed his life after facing a health scare that served as a wake-up call to take charge of his health. As we'll hear from David in just a moment, he was faced with a 95% chance of developing a fatal heart attack from his yo-yo dieting habits of losing, gaining, and piling on fat. David's doctor posed him with an ultimatum that has since led him down a transformative journey where he not only shed 50 pounds of fat at the ripe age of 62, but mustered the strength at 67 to hike Mount Kilimanjaro to prove it's never too late to take back control of your health. Today's episode will be centered around the themes of health, nutrition, and what David has coined the 9 simple golden rules of life. Some highlights include whole foods, proper hydration, and the importance of sleep and exercise. We're very eager to have him with us today. So without further ado, David, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Danny, for having me.
The last we spoke, you mentioned that you went through a pretty catastrophic health diagnosis or prognosis that basically made you change the way that you were acting and the way that you were going to view yourself, food, and your life kind of moving forward. Could you explain that feeling that you got when your doctor basically gave you that ultimatum and how that shaped how the future of your health kind of looked from that moment forward?
Yes, I'd love to. As I told you, in my 20s and 30s, I was fit and trim and a health person. However, like with most people, life gets in the way with family obligations and work responsibilities. And I stopped exercising and started eating fast foods and convenient foods. And before I realized it, the weight crept up on me. And then in July of 2016, at age 61, my doctor told me, based on my lab results and the fact that I was fat, I had a 95% chance for a fatal heart attack. He gave me 2 options. He said I could lose weight or find a new doctor. And he strongly encouraged me to find a new doctor because he had been after me for 8 years to lose the weight. And if I did lose weight on a diet, I would gain it all back, sometimes even more. I was frustrated. I was embarrassed. This time was different. The light bulb went off. And during the next 4 months, I lost 50 pounds, which is 25% of my total body weight. And then a couple of years later, in June of 2022, at age 67, I hiked up Mount Kilimanjaro. So I don't let people use age as an excuse for not becoming healthy and being the healthiest version of themselves.
There's a lot to unpack with just that right there. I'm curious to know, what did hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro signify to you more than just the age? Because I'm sure it had a lot more to do than just, oh, I'm 67 and I'm hiking up this mountain. I'm sure it represented something more than that.
It did. It meant that I was physically and mentally able to do it. It's a challenging trek. I met Anne Lorrimore, who at age 89 set the world record for the oldest person to hike up Mount Kilimanjaro to the summit. And so she's kind of inspired me. And also Blaine Singer, he would do annual retreats every July and take a group of people on the hikes. And that's what got me started thinking about doing it. It's more that I have high school classmates that are talking about dying in a few years. They say, well, if I can make it to age 70 or 75, I'll be happy. And I'm like, wait a minute. I plan to live to be 120 or more. And so I got to take care of this body because it's the only place I got, to live. That's what Dr. Bob Martin says. And also Jim Rohn, forget which one coined it first, but that's their attitude is, hey, if you don't take care of your body, where else are you going to live? And going back to the weight reduction, after I lost the weight, I went back and I started reading the books from the 1970s that I had accumulated by Paul and Patricia Bragg, Jack LaLanne, Richard Simmons, William Duff, these Sugar Blues. And I realized they were talking about basic principles and concepts. Then I started reading books from the current authors, and they were talking about their supplements, their programs, their methods. And it made it sound like if you didn't invest in their programs or supplements, you'd fail. And I thought, there's something wrong here. So I started doing research. I'm a former divorce lawyer, so I know how to sift through the fact, the fiction, the opinions, and figure out what's true and what's not. Because especially in the health industry, in the diet and weight loss industries, one expert will tell you one thing, a second expert will tell you that the first one is wrong, and a third expert will tell you that the first two are wrong. So, as an average person, who or what do you trust and believe and act on? And the correct answer is, in my opinion, not one size fits all. So, they're all right based on the person that is doing their program or the treatments. And we're all different. We have different likes, different tastes. We're made up of different biology, different chemistries, different hormones from male and female. So a lot goes into it. So as I said, you can't say one size fits all. You have to figure out what's going to work for you.
Yeah. And in terms of figuring out what was working for you, what were both the physical and the mental steps that you had to take and actually identify that worked for you in order to finally keep those pounds off? Because you mentioned that you were kind of not yo-yo dieting, but losing the weight and then gaining it back and then kind of doing that pattern. So what was the final, nail in the coffin, for lack of better words, that you actually were able to take both the physical and the mental steps to fully change and to keep the weight off?
Well, I've identified what I call 9 simple golden rules for living a healthy life. And the first step for me in my weight reduction is to accept that I was overweight and fat, and then to stop talking about it and do something. So I write about there are 3 types of people who want to lose weight: those that think about it and do nothing, those that talk about it endlessly and do nothing, and those who actually act and do something. So this time I had to act, and it was more than just acting. It was changing the mental set to take action and start. We all know what to do, we just don't do it when it comes to reducing weight and eating healthy. And it's not so much what we can do, it's what we will do. And that's the difference, is wanting to do it and doing it. So with the mental aspect of it, is 80% of our thoughts are negative. Imagine if we change that to 80% positive. And we have to stop procrastinating. We have to stop saying, I'll start on Monday. I'll start after the holidays, after my birthday. I'll start after our vacation. I'll start whenever. If people put off things, I'm guilty of that. I would put it off. So we can't put off to tomorrow what we can do today, because tomorrow never comes. And if tomorrow never comes, it means if we don't do it now, we'll never get it done. So I like to go through the 9 simple golden rules, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, definitely.
The first golden rule is to drink more pure water. And when I say pure water, I'm talking about either distilled water, spring water that's from high quality source, or reverse osmosis water. And the reason I say that is our bodies are 60 to 70% water, not soda, not diet soda, not fruit juices, not milk, not alcohol, water. 75% of the US adult population is chronically dehydrated. And there's a direct correlation to 72% of the US population being overweight, of which 42% are clinically obese. And the reason I say that is, a lot of times when we think we're hungry, we're actually thirsty. Think of it this way: a person can go about 40 days without food, but only about 3 or 4 days without water. So it's important that you drink water. The second golden rule is to avoid the highly processed, ultra processed, and manufactured foods, because they're really not foods. They're scientifically engineered to optimize our cravings for fat, salt, sugar, and texture. And they make them addicting so that your brain never gets the message that you're full. That's why when they say, bet you can't eat just one potato chip, it's not a dare, it's a fact. The third golden rule is to eat real, holistic, whole foods. So instead of drinking orange juice or apple juice, eat an orange, eat an apple. The juices are just pure sugar.
I remember the last time we spoke, and just to quickly interject here, you told me that someone who ate applesauce was more likely to gain weight, or actually did gain weight, than someone who just ate the apple. And it's because of the composition of the apple versus the applesauce. Is it the same with the juice as well, because it's more concentrated in the sugar?
Correct. They did a study, and what they found, they gave 3 different groups. One group was given the whole apple to eat, one was given applesauce to eat, one was given apple fruit juice to drink. And the people that ate applesauce and drank apple juice all gained weight and had issues with spikes in their sugar levels. The people that ate the whole apple had no issues with sugar spikes and did not gain weight. And they found that it was based on, like you said, the composition of the whole apple that made the body be able to digest it and eat it better. The same thing with an orange. It takes 4 to 8 medium oranges to make a glass of orange juice. And that's without the fiber, and that's all the sugar. And I don't care if they add fiber back into it or leave some fiber, it's still not the same. So when you think about it, would you eat 4 to 8 oranges at one sitting? Well, for most people, no. Well, that's how much sugar you're getting in your body with a glass of orange juice. It's a myth, and it's a marketing marketing gimmick by the industry to get people to drink more oranges or, drink more orange juice so they can make more orange juice.
We were talking about the ways that people manipulate and persuade through different marketing tactics and food. I remember the last we spoke, it was about breakfast and the myth of it being the most important meal of the day. It's interesting that you bring it up again because it seems to be a common theme throughout the health and wellness, I guess you can say, niches and overall. There are some people that advocate what you advocate, and then there are other people that advocate the opposite side of the spectrum. Kind of like as you were alluding to, if you don't take these supplements, if you don't do this thing, if you don't follow this specific regimen that has all of these different components to it, then you're doing something wrong.
Exactly. And breakfast means to break the fast. Doesn't mean it's, to eat breakfast when you wake up in the morning. That's a marketing gimmick, in my opinion, by the cereal companies, Kellogg's and Post, because they want to sell more cereal. So when do you want to eat cereal? Eat it for breakfast. It's a breakfast cereal. Well, it's not necessarily healthy for you. And now the president of Kellogg's come out saying, oh, eat cereal for dinner because he wants to sell more product, even though it's very unhealthy for you, again, in my opinion, because of what they've put into the product. The ingredients used back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and early 70s were much different than what you see in the ingredients label today. It's more with artificial ingredients for shelf life, for flavor enhancement, to make it more addictive for you. What I tell people is first thing you should put in your mouth is at least 20 ounces of water. I drink that first thing. Number one, it rehydrates you. And number two, water acts as an appetite suppressant. A good healthy breakfast can vary from person to person. And again, not one size fits all. So if you're the type of person that needs to eat breakfast in the morning, have a couple eggs, have oatmeal, have some fruits, have some vegetables. There's a lot of things you can eat other than just breakfast cereal. Number four, eat small portions, because people in the US don't realize that our portion sizes have been supersized. In the 1900s, the average size dinner plate was 9 inches in diameter. Today in the US, it's 12 inches, and in some restaurants, it's 13 to 15 inches. Yet in Europe, except for the UK, the average size dinner plate is still 9 inches in diameter. The other thing is, a lot of times here in the US, the fast food places such as Jack in the Box, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, they'll do specials where 2 for 1, buy one sandwich, get one free. Well, that's great. And I used to enjoy that because I would buy the one sandwich, get 2 of them, and eat both of them. I don't need to eat 2 breakfast sandwiches. So again, it's a way for us to eat more and causes us to gain weight when we really don't need to. And that brings us to golden rule number 5, which is eat slower. When you eat slower, you'll eat less. When we eat slower, Mark David wrote a book called The Slow Down Diet. And what he said is, if you take 5 minutes for breakfast, give yourself 10. And at a minimum, give yourself 30 minutes for lunch and for dinner. Too often, we'll be working at our desk in front of our computers while driving, watching TV. You look down, and before you realize it, the food is gone. It's like, well, where did it go? Well, you ate it because of what I call mindless eating. So you want to slow down and eat less. And then golden rule number 6 is to get adequate sleep. You need a minimum of 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. Research shows that a person who doesn't get 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep will consume an extra 500 calories per day. Well, in order to lose a pound, you need to reduce your caloric intake by 500 calories per day for an entire week. So if you're sleep deprived, you're going in the wrong direction. And then people reach for the energy drinks, the sodas with the caffeine and the sugar to give them that boost when there's better alternatives than doing that. So golden rule number 6, get adequate sleep, which then goes into golden rule number 7. I call it rest to digest, which is basically an intermittent fast. And when people hear the word intermittent fast or intermittent fasting, they roll their eyes and think starvation. No, it's not starvation. What it means is stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed. And then if you get 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep, and then your first meal is 2 hours after you wake up, that's 12 hours. So a lot of people are doing it without realizing it. Golden rule number 8, I mentioned earlier, is to think positive, because 80% of our thoughts are negative. So imagine if we made them positive. And then golden rule number 9 is to walk each day or do physical activity. Walking is one of the most underrated physical activities a person can do. Rebel Wilson, the actress, lost 77 pounds in 1 year simply walking an hour each day. Now, I understand not everybody can walk an hour at one time each day because of different responsibilities with family and work. However, Mindy Kaling also lost weight walking each each day. And what she did is when she had a 10 or 15-minute break, she'd go for a walk instead of being on social media or texting friends. And if you do a 10 or 15-minute walk 4 or 5 times throughout the day, that's 40 to 60 minutes. The other thing is walking is a physical activity. And when you start having more energy and you're building some muscle walking, you want to do more. Exercise to lose weight is a myth. It's just another gimmick. Don't get me wrong. Exercise is extremely important for overall health and fitness. However, for reducing weight, it's one of the worst things you can do. And the reason I say that is the new year, most people make a resolution to lose weight and get healthier, and they go to the gym. And after a couple weeks, they get on the scale and they haven't lost any weight. Now they're frustrated because they're doing everything right, but the scale's not moving. What's happening is they're replacing the fat with muscle. Fat and muscle weigh the exact same amount. The difference is muscle takes up less room than fat. And so your clothes may be feeling looser, you're maybe losing inches, but the scale won't move. And the reason I say that is I had a friend of mine, actually a client, and that's what happened after 3 weeks of being in my coaching program. He kept saying, I'm doing everything and the weight's not coming off. And I said, are you exercising more? He goes, yes, I'm walking 5 miles a day. I'm riding my bike and people are asking me if I've lost weight. He said, the scale doesn't say. I said, well, how do your clothes feel? He goes, well, they're actually loose. I said, don't go by the scale. And so that's an indicator that people use that may be inaccurate for them. And again, to reduce weight and improve your overall health, it's done by small increments, done consistently over a long period of time. And that's the key, long period of time. That's when you see the dramatic results. A lot of times we don't see the small changes that are going on, and then people get frustrated and they stop and they quit.
There's a couple of things that I wanted to hit on. The first was that from a very, very young age, I remember my mom said that I used to inhale food. And this kind of goes back to the taking more time to eat. She said, if you're swallowing a full piece of spaghetti or pasta or whatever, then you haven't chewed enough. So make sure that your food feels like a paste in your mouth before you swallow it. And that was one of the first rules I remember. And it was really interesting to me because as I've gotten older and I've just started to be more conscious while I've been eating, I've noticed that it takes longer to chew your food, obviously, instead of just inhaling it and swallowing it. So it really doesn't require that much more energy, for lack of better words, to eat slower. And it's seen as like, oh, I have to wait for this other person to finish their food. And it's like, you never want to be the person waiting, but it's like just taking the extra time to make sure that everything is fully digestible and not like you're swallowing full chunks of food. It's easier on your digestive system. It's just better overall. So that was like a little side note. And the second thing that I wanted to get into was when you said that when you're sleep deprived, you eat on average 500 more calories. And then for those that are sleep deprived, they're going for the energy drinks, they're going for the sugar drinks. I want to play devil's advocate because what about the person that says, well, what about sugar free? It's 0 calorie energy drink. Why is that bad for me? Why does that make me gain weight?
Oh, great question. And I get that argument all the time from people. How does diet soda with 0 calories cause weight gain? It causes weight gain because it has aspartame as an artificial sweetener. Aspartame has 92 known side effects. One of those side effects is it inhibits your body from absorbing vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. So now your body is not getting the right nutrition, the right fuel, and it goes into what they call starvation mode. So it's fighting like crazy to keep the weight on. The other side effect of aspartame is it increases your cravings for sweetness. So now you may have the diet soda, but now you're craving the candy bar, the cookie, the ice cream, and now you're going to eat more of those. And those have a lot of calories and empty calories. And getting back to eating slowly, what they found in the store-bought shelf breads and in the breads used for sandwiches in fast food places like the hamburger places is that there's no fiber in the bread or the buns. So you don't have to chew it. So it's easier to swallow to make you eat faster. Or if you eat real homemade bread or sprouted grain bread, it's a different texture because of the fiber and you have to chew it. You have to eat slow in order to swallow it. So that's an important fact. And that was a great point you brought up.
And in terms of the positive thinking, in terms of just changing your thought patterns, for someone who's maybe new to the whole self development, self improvement type of thing, and they don't really see the connection, can you maybe go a little bit deeper in explaining why is it so crucial for us to be consciously aware of what our thoughts are? Because I have heard from other professionals that yes, 80% or even 90% of our thoughts are negative and also repetitive, meaning that if we had a negative thought today, we more than likely probably had it yesterday and the day before. And for someone who's maybe just starting on the weight loss journey or just self-development, why is it so important to switch around those negative thoughts into positive, aside from just, oh yeah, I want to be happy, but what does my happiness have to do with weight loss?
There's a lot of different things to look at it. Instead of saying I can't have something like a Hershey bar or a Snickers bar or a diet soda, which is a negative thought, focus on what you are able to eat that's healthy for you. So you look forward to eating the apple or eating the salad with the beautiful vegetables and bright colors and everything. So when you look at it that way, instead of saying, oh, I'm depriving myself, I'm sacrificing, change that to I'm making a choice to eat healthier. And that makes a big difference on your attitude. So now you're not feeling like you're giving up something or sacrificing something. You're just making a healthier choice. And that's one example. Instead of saying you're on a diet, which means that it's temporary, extreme, hard to stick with, and potentially dangerous to your health, say that you're making a lifestyle change, that you're improving your eating habits and your lifestyle. Big difference on how your mind conceives things and perceives things. So that's why it's important. And there's a whole list of positive affirmations to do and positive declarations as opposed to thinking negative. Again, I reversed my thinking. So instead of thinking that, oh, I'm not able to have the M&Ms or the Pringles potato chips or, the pizza, it's no, I'm making a healthy choice. More for the other person, looks better on the other person than it does me, and better in the trash than on my ass. Those are my three sayings. And so again, a mental attitude of thinking positive. It's just small little adjustments people can make. You don't have to do all 9 simple golden rules at first. And usually when I talk to a potential client, I ask them, are there any of the 9 golden rules you're unable to do? And most people say, no, I'm able to do all of them. The next question is, are you willing to do it? And surprisingly, some people say, no, I'm not willing to do it. They don't want to give up the soda or diet soda or the fruit juices or the ice cream or the pizza or whatever. If that's the case, I'm not able to help them, nor do I think anybody else is. Then they're going to resort to the drugs, the Ozempic, the Wegovy, in my opinion, are very dangerous. They're finding scientific evidence to show that there's permanent stomach damage and permanent intestinal damage from long-term use of the drug. Plus, it's expensive. It's between $1,000 and $1,500 a month, and you have to be on it for life. So why not just make simple changes to your eating habits and lifestyle that will give you the results you want, save you a lot of money, and be better for you?
Yeah, the last we spoke, you said that you were a big advocate of the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, or keep it simple, silly. And it's interesting you brought up using the word diet as something temporary and something that you might not be able to actually fulfill because it's intense, extreme. What are some of the diets that you've seen or that you've done that you personally can say, yeah, I've done this, I've seen this, it's not sustainable, but it's become widely known and common? Because I was speaking with a professional and he said that we've accepted too many things as normal, but they're not common. Like if you need glasses, then that is common because a lot of people have lenses or actually wear glasses, but it's not normal for your eyes not to be functioning properly. And it's the same thing when it comes to weight loss. It's like, well, it's now common that a lot of people are looking for weight loss drugs or they're looking for something like Ozempic, but it's not normal that you are this overweight, that you are morbidly obese.
Correct. Being overweight and obese is the new normal, and it shouldn't be. And what a lot of people may not realize is the average person will attempt 4 to 5 different diets each year, and over a lifetime, 129 different diets. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you diets don't work. I lost my weight using HCG, which is a diet. It's a hormone from pregnant women that tricks the body to burning fat instead of muscle because you're on 550 calories per day. A friend of mine said I didn't need to spend the money on the HCG, which in the US is no longer available, and that he was going to show me. So he lost 40 pounds during the same time that I lost my 50 pounds. The difference was he was burning muscle while I was burning fat. And after we lost our weight, he looked at me while we were driving one day and he says, does the skin on your arms hang down like this? And I said, no. And I showed him and he goes, oh. I said, well, that's because you were burning muscle instead of fat. He goes, you don't know what you're talking about. He goes, I'm going to go to the gym, hire a trainer and start exercising. Great. A couple weeks later, we're talking again. He says, can you lift more than 15 pounds? I said, 50 or 15? He says, 15. I said, yeah, I'm lifting 50 pounds. Why? He goes, I'm not able to lift more than 15 pounds. I said, well, what does your trainer say? He goes, I need to eat more because I burn muscle and not fat. So I didn't say anything after that. I just left it. That's where people lose weight the wrong way. Think of it this way. A diet is like a sprint. There's a finish line. And when you cross the finish line On a sprint, you're done. And when people reach their goal on a diet, they're done. And what do? They reward themselves by eating hot fudge sundaes, chocolate cake, favorite meal, and then start their bad habits back up again, regain all the weight. Think of your lifestyle change as a marathon, and you're eating healthy and you're in a marathon, except in this marathon, there's no finish line. You just keep going and going like the Energizer bunny rabbit. That's the analogy I use. The other thing is, I've been on Jenny Craig diet and I lost weight on that. You got to order their food and you got to use it all the time. Did some other diets. I had a high school classmate reach out to me and say she wanted one of my novels that I had written if I would sign it for her. I said, sure. And she was telling me she was going to do the cabbage soup diet because she does it every year and she loses the weight, wins a contest, and then gains it all back. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. You're going to do my lifestyle changes and I'm going to work with you. Her goal was to lose 35 pounds. She ended up losing 40 pounds in 6 months. The main thing is, though, she's happy with her new lifestyle and she's kept it off because now she's focusing on the things that she enjoys that's healthy for her rather than the things that she wants and craves that are unhealthy for her, because what you focus on expands. That's Oprah Winfrey quote. So if you focus on the things that you enjoy that are healthy for you, you won't be thinking about the things that are unhealthy for you that you're craving or that you want. That's why it's important to have a good, positive mental attitude.
I like that. I also like that you brought it back full circle. I'm curious to know, and this could be considered a side thought, but I was just thinking about this as you were talking. There are a lot of people that go through weight loss journeys similar to the one that you did, but they don't dedicate their career towards it. Like you said that you used to be a divorce lawyer?
Correct.
And now you're known as the health guy. What about this was so calling to you that you were like, you know what? There's something more fulfilling in this line of work than what you were doing in the past.
Like I said, in my 20s and 30s, I was fit and trim. I was very condescending toward other people, very judgmental toward other people who were overweight, who were eating the free donuts that were given out at work, that would do the fast foods and didn't understand their frustrations, their embarrassment, and what they were going through. And I believe, and I told my wife this, I came full circle. I said, when I got out of college, I wanted to open a health food center with fitness and nutrition and never did. I think I had to go through the experience of being overweight, eating unhealthy, being fat, being out of shape, being unfit to know what people go through so I can be more empathetic, more sympathetic, more relating and understanding so that I could communicate better with them as to how to improve their overall health. And so I truly believe that was my calling, but I had to go through this experience in this journey to understand what others are going through.
To go back quickly on what you said before in terms of the positive mindset and not giving into cravings. For someone who maybe is just beginning on their journey, or they've maybe done the yo-yo dieting, or they do what your friend did, they lose a bunch of weight and then they gain it back, or they always just go back to their cravings. It kind of reminds me of saying, don't think of a white elephant. And then all you can think of and all you can see is that white elephant. How can you actually stop yourself from seeing that white elephant? Because let's say, for example, every single day I'm always just craving something sweet. I don't know why. I just am always craving something sweet. I really love croissants, for example. And every single day I always want one. If you're telling me that I can't have one and I go for a month without having one, and then I see it and I still feel the urge, but I don't do it, but then I see it and then I say, you know what, I have to, and I give in. How can I stop myself from giving in, even though I've showed willpower and I've showed that I cannot, but then I end up always going back to it?
Well, first thing is never beat yourself up for overindulging. When you beat yourself up, that's a negative attitude, negative thought. So you want to think of it as an airplane. An airplane leaving from Los Angeles to New York or vice versa, if it's off 1 degree, will be off course by 150 miles. And during the flight, planes are on autopilot, and the autopilot is adjusting 90% of the time to course correct. So you want to always be course correcting to stay on your weight loss journey. The other thing is with croissants, I think that was a bad example to use because my wife and I were in Italy and I was eating croissants every day and pizza. And the reason I say that and gelato is because the ingredients used there are fresh. They're not from a box. It's not full of chemicals and artificial ingredients. And so it's actually something that won't cause weight gain if you're just having one or a little bit of gelato. The problem here in the US is the croissants are highly processed, loaded with chemicals, artificial ingredients, and are unhealthy. So if you're in Europe, like you are, then a croissant is okay. So indulge if it's just one a day. What you want to do is if you have a craving, have a little bit and see if you can first reduce what you're having, and then maybe substitute for something else, and then eventually eliminate. So if you're having a craving for something sweet and you want a croissant, have a croissant. If you're having a craving for something sweet, have a little bit. Just don't eat the whole thing. So you're satisfying that urge, and then you're building up. And again, it's a process. On average, research has shown that it takes 66 days to build a new habit, not 21 days, not 30 days, as suggested by other experts. And again, 66 days is on average. So some may do it quicker, some may do it longer. You got to give yourself time. And that's why when I ask people who want to go on a weight reduction journey and start a healthy lifestyle, would you be happy weighing 24 to 48 pounds lighter by this time next year? And most people are like, well, yeah, that'd be great. Well, if you can lose 2, 3, or 4 pounds per month on average, and you do that because some months you'll lose more, some you'll lose less, some you won't lose any at all. If you lose 2, 3, 4 pounds on average per month for 12 months in a year, you're 24 to 48 pounds lighter. The problem is the national brands here in the US advertise lose 20, 30 pounds your first month guaranteed. Well, you'll lose that weight. The problem is it's not sustainable. And number two, most people regain the weight. And number three, you have to be on their products or meal plans for life. I know a relative that's been on Jenny Craig for 40 years. I'm sorry, I want to be able to eat real food, enjoy my food without having to rely on Jenny Craig to deliver to my house. Start examining why you're doing certain things. There's a story I tell in books about pot roast, and a lady is hosting a party and she makes a pot roast. And one of the guests says, wow, this pot roast is delicious. Can I get the recipe? And the host says, of course. So after the meal, the host writes it down, gives it to the guest, and the guest looks at it and reads it, and she says, why do you cut the ends of the pot roast off before you cook it? And the host says, I don't know. That's how my mom taught me. The next day, the host calls her mom and says, Mom, why do we cut the ends of the pot roast off before we cook it? And her mom says, I don't know. That's how your grandmother taught me. The host calls the grandmother and says, Grandma, why do you cut the ends of the pot roast off before we cook it? And the grandmother thought for a minute and she says, oh, because when I was first married, the pot I had was too small, so I had to cut the ends of the pot roast off to cook it. Well, the moral of the story is we do certain things a certain way without thinking or questioning it. So we have certain things that we eat or eat a certain way or at a certain time because that's how we were taught by our parents. A friend of mine, John Canada, calls it dietary duplication. And it's based how we're taught. So you have to start examining, why do you put ketchup on your French fries? Why do you eat a certain way? Why do you eat certain things? And if it's not healthy for you, start making changes.
I like that. I actually haven't heard of the pot roast analogy, but I'm gonna have to use that. That's a nice one. We are nearing our time for today, but as a nice little way to end, right now you hit it on the head. I am in Madrid, Spain right now. I'm not in the United States. For someone that is in the United States and they are trying to get better on this health journey of theirs and they are trying to lose weight, keep it off, what would be the best piece of advice or a tip when it comes to literally anything that we talked about, whether it be the marketing for foods, the 9 golden rules, anything that you wish that you really would have heeded in terms of words of advice and wisdom when you first began?
Oh, the 9 simple golden rules is the basics. It's the what to do. And so I teach the how to implement those 9 simple golden rules. They're simple, not easy. And again, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. Look at each one, pick one or two to do over a 30-day period, master it, and then move on to the next one. You don't have to do everything at one time. Again, it's a journey, it's a lifetime journey. The other thing is start now, not tomorrow, not after the holidays, not after Monday, not after the weekend, not after vacation. Start now, because I was guilty of that for 8 years. I would procrastinate. I'm going to start the next day. Never did. Something always comes up to derail the journey in making the change. And then be consistent in your small little changes that you're doing. Give it a lot of time to start seeing results, because you're not seeing the little changes your body are going through as you're making those small, seemingly inconsequential changes. And be positive. Don't let others talk you out of it or tell you, well, if 90% of people lose weight, gain it all back, why even bother? Because you're one of the 10% that's not going to regain it and you're going to be healthy. So that's my advice. And start with drinking more pure water. Again, not soda, diet soda, milk, orange juice, fruit juices. If you're going to have alcoholic beverages, a glass of wine is fine, especially in Europe. Red wine, I don't have any issue with that. Try to avoid the mixed drinks. And if you're going to have a mixed drink, maybe have half Or if you're having 2 or 3 a day, reduce it down to 1 or 2. And just start making those little changes to first reduce, substitute, then eliminate. So that's my advice for parting thoughts.
Awesome. And really, really quick, just as a side note, you've mentioned red wine. Is white wine all right, or what's going on with the differences?
White wine is okay. However, research has shown that red wine is potentially healthier for you.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, David. This has been very wonderful. Thank you for the insights. I think we definitely learned a lot, and there's a lot of good things we can take away from this.
Oh, thanks, Dan. I appreciate you having me as a guest. And one final thought, if people want to see more, I do have a streaming TV series that they can go to jadedhealth.tv and watch it there.
Yeah, I was actually about to say if someone was interested in learning more about what you do, you also mentioned that there is a new book on the way. Where can they find that? Where can they get these resources?
They can go to jadedhealth.tv for the TV series. They can go to jadedhealth.org for the website, and they will get information about the books that I've written already there that are available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookstores. And they can also get information about the forthcoming book titled Jaded Health, and that'll be released soon. There'll be information on the website for that.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Danny.
And that wraps up today's episode of Vibrant Living Diaries. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing your expertise and to the International Wellness Alliance for making this all possible. And we hope that you've been inspired to take the next step forward in your own wellness journey. As always, we're eager to hear your thoughts and experiences. Connect with us on our social media platforms and share how you're integrating the knowledge gained here into your daily life. I'm Danielle Grobman and can't wait to continue this journey with you in our next episode. Until then, keep exploring, stay curious, and embrace the vibrant life you deserve. Speak soon.